Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're really peeling the onion on a highly specific, kind of deeply confusing, and frankly, highly manipulative relationship dynamic. So, if you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling entirely turned around, just wondering, wait, how on earth did I become the bad guy here? Well, you're in exactly the right place. We're going to visually map out a behavior pattern that is honestly just as destructive as it is common. Let's get right into it.
I want you to think about your own lived experience for a second here. Have you ever been in a situation where someone hurts you, and you just try to address it with them calmly? Yet somehow, literally within a mere 5 minutes of talking, they're suddenly the one who's hurt, and you are the one apologizing to them? It's such a dizzying experience, right? You go in just seeking a simple acknowledgement, and you leave completely comforting the person who actually caused the original harm. Wild.
Okay, let's dive into this. That incredibly confusing role reversal you're experiencing, it's not a coincidence at all. It is a deeply ingrained psychological skill, and once you understand exactly how it works, how it's structured, and how it deploys against you, I promise it's going to completely change how you view certain relationships in your life forever.
Which brings us to our first major concept, the narcissistic injury.
When most of us hear the word narcissism, we immediately think of extreme arrogance or like an overabundance of confidence. But true clinical narcissism, it's not rooted in confidence at all. It's actually rooted in extreme fragility. Right behind all that grandiosity is a self-image that is incredibly, almost dangerously brittle. A narcissistic injury happens when any criticism, or even just a perceived slight, creates a wound to their ego that is entirely destabilizing. They literally cannot sit with the discomfort of being at fault. And here's an absolutely crucial detail. This victim stance they take, it isn't always some calculated, mustache-twirling lie. For a lot of narcissists, it's their genuine emotional reality. When consequences show up, they truly feel wronged, which is exactly why their performance of victimhood is so incredibly convincing to you.
Now let's move into the mechanics of this with our next section, the empathy paradox.
And this brilliantly illustrates the cruelest part of the entire dynamic. This manipulation specifically targets a certain type of person. It goes after people who are naturally drawn to helping, People who have these really strong instincts to relieve the suffering of others, to see both sides of an argument, and to willingly take responsibility for their own part in a conflict. So, on one side, you have narcissistic fragility, which absolutely must deflect blame and consequence just to survive. And on the other side, you have your empathy, which instinctively steps up to take responsibility and offer comfort. So when a narcissist performs victimhood, they're pulling the exact lever that works on a deeply empathetic person. Your own conscience literally becomes weaponized against you. You feel that pull to comfort them, so you back down. You apologize. Not because you are actually wrong, but because your empathy just can't bear to see someone suffer, even if that person is the one who caused the original harm. The narcissist didn't create your empathy, sure, but man, they certainly learned how to use it.
So how does this actually play out in a conversation? Let's look at DARVO in real time. Researcher Jennifer Freud at the University of Oregon identified this really specific, recognizable response pattern that's super common in abusive personalities. It's an acronym called DARVO. Step 1 is deny. The harmful behavior is denied outright. They'll say things like, "I never said that," or "that is absolutely not what happened." Then we hit step 2, attack. The confrontation itself actually becomes the attack. So suddenly you're hearing, "How dare you accuse me after everything I've done for you?" And finally, step 3, reverse victim and offender. The full reversal. Now they are the victim of your accusation. They're the victim of your tone, your perceived unfairness, and you, the target who really just wanted to address a legitimate hurt, you are now painted entirely as the aggressor. Now what's really interesting about this slide is this single number, 7. Because you might be wondering, okay, how long does it actually take for a skilled person to run through that entire DARVO process, from denying to attacking to fully reversing the roles? It takes an average of merely 7 seconds to execute. Just 7 seconds. Think about that. There is a massive, quantifiable asymmetry at play here. 7 seconds for them to execute this psychological flip, but it can literally take you, the target, days or even weeks to untangle what just happened in your own mind. I really want to highlight this because if you've ever felt deeply confused, exhausted, or just completely disoriented after one of these conversations, your reaction is completely valid. It is a profoundly disorienting manipulation, totally designed to scramble your reality in seconds. The next logical question is, why does this destructive cycle keep repeating? Let's look at the trauma bond cycle. It really comes down to what both parties are learning from the interaction. Each time this role reversal works, the behavior reinforces itself, right? The narcissist learns that performing victimhood gets them exactly the results they want. And the target learns, incorrectly I should definitely add, that backing down and apologizing is the only way to bring peace back to the relationship. This repetitive loop creates what trauma therapists call a trauma bond. It's basically a cycle of harm and relief that over time dangerously begins to feel like actual intimacy. Because the conflict is just so highly distressing, the periods of calm and warmth between the fights feel enormous by contrast. The sheer relief of them finally being nice to you tricks your brain into feeling deeply connected to them.
And this leads to a pretty devastating illusion. The target starts to look at the warm version of the narcissist and wholeheartedly believes that that is the real person. They tell themselves the conflict version is just a rare exception, a bad day or a slight misunderstanding. But the clinical reality, it's the exact opposite. The conflict version, the manipulative version, is the reality of the structure. The warm version is merely the exception that keeps you hooked right back in the cycle.
So, understanding the trap is the first step. But let's move into our next section, breaking the pattern.
How do you actually dismantle this psychological dynamic when it's actively happening to you? So the crucial point is implementing these 3 defense tactics. First up, disengage from the reversal. Do not defend yourself against their counter-accusation. The moment you try to prove your case, you've actually already accepted their framing of the conversation. Second, document everything. Narcissists rely heavily on your memory being murky or on you starting to doubt yourself. Write down exactly what happened and what was said. And this isn't to build some legal case against them. It's to anchor yourself to your own reality. And third, reduce the information you share. Narcissists will use your disclosures against you. The more they know about your fears and insecurities, the better calibrated their victim performance becomes. Remember, creating emotional distance here is not cruelty. It's absolutely vital self-preservation.
When you're in the heat of the moment and they attempt that DARVO flip, I want you to use this really specific, incredibly calm statement. I understand you feel upset. My original concern still stands. Say it exactly like that. And then just stop talking. Do not add to it. Do not justify it. The silence that follows is going to feel incredibly uncomfortable. But let it be uncomfortable. Stay in the silence. It completely short-circuits their ability to feed off your defensive energy. As we bring this explainer to its conclusion, let's discuss recognizing the true structure. Let's move to and see how this builds, because understanding this doesn't mean you have to label every single person who upsets you as a clinical narcissist. Look, most everyday people have selfish and narcissistic moments from time to time. We really need to distinguish between a regular bad day and a truly toxic pattern. A true red flag relies on 3 things: consistency, escalation when confronted, and a total inability of the relationship to ever actually resolve an issue. If you are in a relationship where you leave every single difficult conversation having apologized simply for raising a valid concern in the first place, that is a massive, blinding red flag. I really want you to hear this and truly let it sink in. You are allowed to name what is happening to you. You are allowed to trust what you saw. You absolutely do not need their permission, their agreement, or their validation to know that you are harmed. Your reality is completely valid, and you possess the ultimate power to trust your own memory over their manipulated version of events. And we'll end with this final, provocative reframing. Leaving a conversation apologizing for your own valid hurt is not a communication problem that can somehow be fixed with couples therapy or better listening skills. That is a power structure. It is specifically designed to keep you subjugated and them completely unaccountable. If this dynamic feels personally relevant to your life, I highly encourage you to check out the resources we've linked down in the description to explore this a bit deeper. You have the power to disengage from the inversion. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep observing, and always, always trust your reality.